Welcome to Thriller Bitcoin. Welcome to Thriller Bitcoin.
A vial of hope and a vial of pain. In the light they both look the same. Pour them out on into the world. And every boy and every girl, it's the neon Bible. Neon Bible. Not much chance for survival if the neon Bible is right. Take the poison of your age. Don't lick the fingers when you turn the page. What I know is what you know is right. In the city it's the only light. It's the neon Bible. Neon Bible. Not much chance for survival if the neon Bible is right. But you don't know how. In the light of the golden cow. Oh God, I had to lie.
Well, we're doing it again, Jose.
We at it again. Back on Thriller?
Back on Thriller.
What time was that? This is the second time, right? Third time?
Dude, you come on all the time.
So it feels like.
Yeah,
glad to be back, man.
Come on. You're like, how many times you've been? Let me fix this thing. Bothers the crap out of me.
That's a true audio guy right there, looking at the wires, the cables.
Can you move that thing down?
What do you want, this?
Right, no, the little ratchet thing right there. Yeah,
this?
Perfect. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Man, the guy doesn't want me to put the microphone high.
It's just distracting. I'll keep looking at it the whole time, and I'm just like, I'll just focus on that instead of your eyes. You know,
true professional.
Nah, barely.
What's up, brother?
So yeah, dude, we recorded a pod at the Commons.
We did
on was it Wednesday, Tuesday?
A few days ago.
Yeah, a few days ago. I forget what day it was.
Depends on when you listen to the show.
That's going to come out tomorrow.
Depends on when you're listening to the show.
I'm going to release this on Monday.
Yeah.
So this is kind of like, if you're hearing this right now, probably go to Talking in Bits.
Yeah.
Search for it on Fountain. Listen to that episode first. This is a continuation of that episode.
Word. So there's a part one, part two.
It's a part two. Are you naming that one part one?
Oh, I called it.
What did you call it?
You don't have Tom Brady in your Serato.
You ain't got no Tom Brady in your Serato?
Word. And if you want to know what we're talking about, go check out the episode.
Wow. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, that's a really good thing. So I was just going to call this like real talk. Because like
we do always have real talk.
Last time I had a real conversation, hard in the paint conversation, it was with you.
Yeah. I
You're
mean,
really the only guy besides Vlad I can talk real shit
Shout
about.
out to Vlad. Yeah, I think we bring up Vlad every time we get together too. We have there's a synergy there.
Who else keeps it real?
That's real. Yeah. I mean, I haven't been following. I'm not on social media anymore.
You're off Twitter?
I have it, but I'm not on it. There's two different things, right? So that's probably the only social media app I have installed on my phone. Notifications are muted, badges are muted. And then every now and then somebody shares something with me, so I'll click and go over. So I could kind of be in tune. But because of that, I'm out of tune with a lot of things, especially in the Bitcoin space.
How do you get your news now?
I like to go with the old philosophy. If it's important enough, it'll get to me. Somebody, one of my circles, somebody in my network will share it with me, or they'll say something about it, or it'll just be so damn big that you can't avoid it. And I think that was the way we consumed information when I was growing up as a kid, right? So
100%.
I think it's better for the mind. I think it's better for time, right? I think everybody listening can relate to that morning where they sat on the toilet, were on Twitter, legs got numb. You sat there for too fucking long and you realize you had immediate anxiety. And the reason is not because of anything you scrolled by. It's because you realize you just blew an hour of your life sitting on the toilet, listening to watching noise, right? There's no signal, rarely any signal on Twitter. So I still call it Twitter. That's how out of tune I am. I know it's X, but I don't call it that because I'm not on that. So
do you think it's going to turn into, this is just, I want your opinion because I don't think you've said this publicly, or maybe you have, but do you think it's going to turn into a WeChat? Do you think that's what he's trying to do over there?
That's a good candidate. I mean, WeChat makes a lot of money. It's a good model to kind of follow, I guess, in a sense. I don't know what he's trying to do. I think he's just caping to, there's the free press crowd, right? Which we saw over 2020 elections, all that stuff, Twitter was censoring media. So I think he found his market in that. Now, is it that Elon truly believes these, freedom of speech principles, freedom of the social square principles? Is it that he believes in those things and now he can do it, show that belief inside of a product? Maybe there's a small part of that. But the entrepreneur in him, I think, just tells me he found the market of people that needed something, and now he's solving that for them, which means he's just going to make a ton of money. Yeah. So I don't know enough details about his life nor the following of Elon to know if he's righteous in his attempts to try to solve free speech, or if he just saw the cash bag Scrooge McDuck.
I think he's just a thoroughbred like entrepreneur.
100%.
And I also think that he understands human nature better than any entrepreneur on the planet right now. Maybe Bezos a close second.
Yeah.
That's just my kind of opinion on it.
Yeah, I'm with you. And he had the money to position himself there. Not everybody can buy a whole social media platform.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people that probably invested in that want certain things to happen. And I think he's a good little boy and he'll make sure it happens.
He's a good little boy away. He's good at what he does. And that's just building shit.
Yeah.
Right? So like, you got to give him that. I mean, his resume is...
It's kind of sad though to see everybody willing to give up their privacy, and it's only going to get worse and worse. But even some people that I respect in the Bitcoin space getting verified checks, and it's kind of sad, dude. It's kind of sad, but it's the game, and it's like, so I personally think it's inevitable that it turns into WeChat. Like that's where I'm at right now. Maybe it's too doom, but I think that's why Nostr and Bitcoin is even more important now than it's ever been. It's funny, critical.
It's funny you say that. I didn't listen to the whole 30 minutes of it, but I was watching a little bit earlier of Snowden on Bitcoin Amsterdam or whatever. And he was basically just kind of like sounding the horn on what we all do know is that Bitcoin has a privacy problem. So it's easy for us to say that because of cryptography and because of the anonymous nature of Bitcoin or of cryptography in itself, that we can actually sit here and say that we're solving something, but it's very easy to have non-privacy in Bitcoin too. So I don't think Nostr might be a solution, but I don't necessarily think base layer Bitcoin is a solution to privacy whatsoever. I actually think it's the opposite, where you can see everything that's happening on base layer. Lightning and other things like that definitely make that paper trail, that's generalizing, the paper trail a little bit harder to find. But yeah, I'm curious to go back and listen to the rest of that conversation, because he definitely seemed adamant, and he let off with that. Like, hey, Bitcoin is not private. I don't know where it goes. I didn't finish it, but I'm fascinated that you said, that we're losing more and more privacy every day. We're working in Bitcoin, but base layer Bitcoin is still very out in the open.
I think it's just a matter of upstream surveillance. And this is a thing that I read about this week. It's just the courts, judicial courts, justice system, they have routinely and proactively said that they're going to stay out of any type of debate when it comes to the stuff like the Snowden leaks and all that stuff. And I think they're doing everything as best they can with the constraints that they have in place, just based off of what I've read. I personally think that if we don't get them to make a decision on where this upstream surveillance from people in power in our own government, like where is the line on that? And how do we get back safely to I don't know, to the damn First Amendment? Do you know what I mean? How much more do we have to endure before we get to a realization as a country on how much surveillance we want in our own lives? And I think when I look at Twitter and what Elon's doing, he's skating towards that. He's ushering it in. And I'm very disappointed in people that I respect in the Bitcoin space, because they know better. Yeah. And they're verified. And it's like, all you're doing is you're signaling to the masses, because those people have a ton of influence. Yeah. And they're signaling to the masses that, hey, blue checks are okay. Let's usher in this new era of upstream surveillance. And remember that. Like, to me, that's what that looks like to me. And this is real talk. This is why I brought you on, because we can have real talk. This is stuff I don't talk about, privately or publicly, because I stay in my fucking lane. But like, I think it needs to be said right now, because it's just getting worse.
Yeah. Well, those influencers and blue checks that you're speaking of loosely is probably the same people that I was speaking about the other day with content over everything. We won't get down there, but this is what I mean, right? Like, you guys have a role to play. You're just playing for the wrong team. There's a lot of that going on. That's what I mean by content over everything, or in part. But the other part of that is that, like, I've been reading a lot of, reading Crypto Sovereignty from Eric Kaysen. The listeners are talking.
Yeah, I need to check that out. There's a third person that's told me about that.
Well, listeners of the show have already got a little glimpse of it. But to what you're saying, how much pain do we take, or when do we get to the point as a society where, enough is enough? The way the current system is set up, that'll never happen. So in order for us, like basically the internet itself has been captured, right? Like there is no way for you to publicly behave on the internet in an anonymous nature, right? So the point I'm trying to make is if you read a lot of what Kaysen is talking about in Crypto Sovereignty, it has to go back to the core, cryptographic principles of the internet, right? The cypherpunks, what they were trying to do. And the cypherpunks and what they believed now is kind of like flashy in the Bitcoin space because, everybody thinks or whatever. But if you really go back to their rules of the internet, it's a lot more complex than what I'm about to say. But it basically boils down to this, having this anonymous, basically making yourself digital. That sounds very weird the first time I heard it, right? Because it's like, how can we actually make ourselves digital? But what I'm starting to figure out is that the panopticon that is the surveillance state it has already dug itself into all parts of society now. But what you have to do is, using cryptography as a weapon, you have to now make your belief system, your money, your life basically in an environment where they can't get a hold of it, where they can't do anything about it. And until we start figuring out, or the tools become easier to do that, we will never shake out of this, because the panopticon, I have a hard time saying that word, is designed to kind of keep you in the state where you don't know when they're watching, but they're always watching, right? That led historically, if you listen to Kaysen's argument, from concentration camps to civil engineering camps to all these different types of camps have built under that same philosophy. So honestly, man, I don't think we get out of it until the tools and the ideals of using cryptography become easier and more standard. Because Jose, as you're speaking to him now, can say certain things, but the state can always use violence on Jose. Jose anonymously using cryptography to state the same exact things, they can't enact their violence because they don't know who Jose is, right? So we need to explore those principles and use them correctly. And I think a lot of, it's sort of like the word blockchain in nowadays is like a thing. I think cryptography is not being spoken of the way it originally was intended to be used, as a weapon, as a military weapon at that. That's the birth of cryptography. And now it's more of just a coiny, flashy cryptographic, even your email client will give you an update that says, now we cryptographically secure your emails. That's cool, but that's not saving nobody's life, right? What we need is to be able to use these tools of war to be able to make digital versions of ourselves where we can say what we want, we can do what we want, we can transact how we want, and we can live how we want. Because the current state is not going to allow you to live how you want. It's how they want.
Gosh, dude.
It's scary, man, but it's real.
No, it's 100% real. We're living it, man.
100%. So you and I, we're professionals in this podcast thing. So we do say pretty much whatever it is that we want to say. But in the back of our minds, we understand that if the state wants to enforce its violence on us, it can. They'll send the police. They'll put you in court. They'll put you in jail. Or fine you to fucking death, right? To your family or whatever. So it's like they can enact that will on us. The problem is that we're not saying anything controversial that bothers the state. We're not even rocking that giant, right? But what if we want to? Value for value is a start, right? You can now, kind of sustain your project with, lightning payments coming in your way. But even that's not enough. It's literally just ejecting the person that you are, Jose, in my example, ejecting yourself and creating a brand new digital space person that can operate anonymously for sure.
Yeah, I agree. The only thing I would change on that kind of framing would be, and hear me out on this. I think it's more about, like last night, I went to Round Rock Bitcoiners. Yep. Amazing meetup. Sure. Jason, shout out Jason, running a fantastic meetup up there in North Austin. Yeah. What I've seen from those individuals, those people up there, not here Central Austin where all the Bitcoiners are and developers, like not here Central. Yeah. But up there, these are just Bitcoiners and people with families. Yeah. Like it's people that just want to escape this fiat society that we have at the front of our doors, right? Yeah. Like all the inflation, recession, everything.
Yeah.
Like they know that. And like, they're just trying to understand, like, how do I leverage Bitcoin to sustain my family and future output?
And that's a huge start.
So I think you're right. And I think there's certain audiences that we should be focusing on as a community, especially here in Austin and the greater Texas, Central Texas area. Yeah. I think a lot of this comes down to informing the public of these things. And I think what Parker and Kaylee do there at the Commons is very important.
Shout out to them.
Because every month we have an Austin Bitcoin Club there.
Yep.
Every month we are informing the greater Austin community about what is important in our lives here in Texas or central to Texas. Right. And I think that is a very important thing that we should be undertaking as Bitcoiners. And I'm strictly speaking to, our community here. Is like, we should be informing the public. Yeah. Maybe not everybody is a job to do that, but people like myself, people like you and people that talk to people in our community. Yeah. We should just be informing them of this stuff so they're aware.
Absolutely.
And they're not taken by the wayside of some of these, I mean, ideally, dude, some of these people are crazy, man, that want to turn this world, like Sam Altman and all those guys. Like, it's scary, man. This open AI stuff is like scary of what he wants to turn it into. It's
but also like, meeting them where they're at, right? Because
100%,
this shit is scary. And me and you can talk about it like we are right now because we both have an understanding that most normies or most people don't have. So my bigger point is like, we have to fix money first. And that's why we preach Bitcoin. And that's why, but the whole rant that I just went on before that is like, the reason that Bitcoin is that tool to fix the money is we got to move back a little bit and understand that it's the cryptography behind Bitcoin that allows it to do that. So I think the broader point of what Kaysen is saying and what I'm trying to say is let's see what else does cryptography fix? Real cryptography, not like cliche cryptography. So it's like we fixed the money. What else did we fix? And what we have to fix is those other, because everything in our lives is internet based nowadays, right? So the problem is that we're using the mainline internet, which, like I said earlier, has already been that's already been breached, right? There's no way that we have any type of privacy there. So it's like, how do we use what we learned in Bitcoin and the cryptography and the sovereignty that builds that to do that in other facets of our life, like freedom of speech, like the real law, because machines are wholly and loyal to their code. If that which is something he explains in the book as well, which is like they can't do anything else but run code. That's it. They'll never breach it. They'll never have the logic to just say, hey, I'm going to do something different today, right? Like they do that. So what that allows us to do is to leverage that with a few other things to basically have utmost truth in everything, utmost truth in law, utmost truth in speech, utmost truth in money, utmost truth in all that. So I'm not saying that we stop talking about Bitcoin and the benefits, because we have to fix money first. That's at the base of everything else. I'm just saying, let's zoom back a little bit more. And instead of thinking of cryptography as just numbers, let's get that education. Because once you understand that, you understand what the Dergigis of the world are talking about, where it's like, you need to be private to do pretty much what it is and say what it is you want to say in life. But we will not be able to do that by changing our names, avoiding cameras, right? Because you can't avoid that stuff. It's not set up. The state is not set up to let you hide like that. But we don't understand cryptography enough to be able to hide correctly. And cypherpunks do. They understand it. And it's a tool of war. Yeah. And we're at war right now. We are. And literally, we're at
war. Oh, I haven't been paying attention to that stuff, though.
Yeah, me neither. I'm not the guy. I'm not seeing it. Like I said, I'm not connected like that. But it's war.
I know there's something going on
people are dying, man.
Other side of the country, but I don't pay attention.
Other side of the world, but people are dying. People are dying
right across the street over here on 6th Street.
It's the war machine doing what it do. It's the state doing what it does. It's enacting war. And
for me, it's like what do you do when it reaches your front doorstep, kind of thing, right?
100%. I was pulling up to the studio today, and some lady came mashing at my window. Right, like that's a problem. But what's happening over there is just the war machine, as we know exists. What do you call it? The gasoline for the paper printer, or the money printer, I should say. It's doing what it does, man, and it's starting war, and that definitely affects us here. Whether it's physical attacks or whether it's societal attacks, whether it's psyop attacks. It affects everybody here. It affects the taxpayer. It affects everything. It's just a system that's doing what it does. It's whirling. What I meant was, as society, we're at war. We're at war with the state. We're at war with surveillance. We're at war with a lot of things. And, some of us are public facing like you and I, and some of us, just share our thoughts and do that. But the real winners of this world, or the ones that'll take it the farthest, are the ones that understand the true ways of using cryptography. Not what you and I kind of, and I'm not going to speak for you, but like what kind of, to this point, I've been thinking of cryptography, which is it's like, oh yeah, the output is always different from the input, which that's a simplified version of what cryptography is.
Yeah, I need to check out that book, man. It's
a good. I mean, it's his old stuff rewritten, and he even says that in the beginning where. And my listeners are probably like, yeah, we heard all this shit already. But like he even gets to the point. Basically, he even says in the beginning, like, you are going to hear the same shit over and over, but in different ways in this book. So he kind of just beats the same thing over and over. But it's bullish because of that. Because when I think about our position as, against whatever the state or whatever that being is, right? Some people see it differently. What it is, it's the fact that they can enforce violence whenever they want. And then up to this point, the cypherpunks were onto something where they were like, oh, they can inflict the violence on our physical self, but they can't inflict the violence on the anonymous self, the NIM, the real NIM. Not like I put a little goofy photo on my Twitter, but I gave them all my KYC. That's not a NIM, bro. That's not a NIM, bro. So yeah. So
that's
the
so funny.
Kaysen has kind of got me that. First of all, the panopticon, which is very important, right? Like you have a MacBook in front of you, have an iPhone, the Apple panopticon, the Google panopticon, right? Like the state's panopticon, right? Basically, like that lens is always staring at you. You never know who's on the other end of it.
I assume I'm always being watched. Even
you
when
are,
I'm at
right?
home. Even when I'm at home,
we all are, right? But it's like, and this is what makes me bullish on. Like,
I assume I'm always being watched and I'm always being recorded.
But this is why I'm bullish.
I think if you live your life like that, at least these days, you're more careful what you say and how you say it and how you act.
But being careful is the problem.
Right? Does it mean it's right?
Right.
But I've accepted that reality.
Sure. And I could, you nailed it. It's always in the back of your mind. So you can't really authentically say what it is you want to say. And people think, like you tell me all the time, harden the pain. I think if I were to really unleash what I'm thinking, it would be even harder.
This is why, man, this is like for me, and we talked about this. I'm not trying to segue us into anywhere, but good. For me personally, this is why I go to church, man. It's the only place in the entire world on a Sunday where I feel the most covered and blanketed as like, no one's going to hurt you, car. That's where I feel like the most comfort. When like you're a kid and your mom used to hold you and be like, oh, mijo, it's going to be fine.
Yes.
That's what church does for me on a Sunday morning. It's like, yo, car, you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
And so that, I think for me personally, just talking about my own personal growth, I think that gets me to go at this every week and to keep going, to keep grinding and to keep building the future we want to see, man. I think I think it's obvious. It's simple. Fix money, fix the world. Like it's as long as we're beating that drum and we keep that in the front of our minds. I think we'll be fine. But as soon as we get away from like, not trying to fix the money and taking money instead to push out that timeline. I think we're doing a disservice to each other and to the community.
There's other life-changing things that also need to be educated on that can't be done openly, right? Because of the fear of the state inflicting, its power on you. And that's where I like, once again, I'm not saying we can't fix the money. I'm just saying like, if they bring this whole shit down, the money's the last thing you're gonna be worried about. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, how do you use cryptography to share, food growing practices, right? Which right now are not illegal, but they can be weapon-based management, securing like this type of information that if they bring and I'm sounding very sinister and that's not.
Yeah, I think you're operating I think what you're describing is a plane from a place of defense as a plane from a place of offense.
I say it's a place of preparation.
Okay.
Because I don't put anything underneath them. They've shown us this, right? That they can do anything. So
this is where I slightly disagree.
Yeah.
And I will say that I really personally believe.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just me wanting to believe this, but I personally think there's patriots still inside of our government that are trying to move this in the right direction. I want to believe that. And I actually think that's an actual thing happening.
Yeah.
I think there are patriots in certain segments of the government, whether it's, in these kind of ABC kind of places, or whether it's just in our own, judicial system or in Congress or the Senate. Like, I want to believe there are patriots that are trying to look out for the future for Americans here at home.
Sure.
And abroad. I want to believe that. And I think there still are. Like, I believe there's a North Star of those people.
I'm sure they exist.
But like, so like, that's why I don't go full on like, oh, we're going to, go the way of, whatever civilization.
I got children. I'm not trying to go there either, but I'm foolish to not prepare for that environment. Right. Like it's just one of those things. Like it's
so you're saying it's more from a place like I can't even want to believe that because I have children is what you're saying.
Well, it's that like when you start like the Stoics have this ideal where if like you think about worst case scenario and you live in that, right? I don't remember the exact Stoic, but it might have been Seneca, it might have been somebody who actually walked around with very little clothes and bare feet for miles, right? And it wasn't because he couldn't afford it; he was well off. It was that he needed to enact this preparation of suffering in order to be able to embrace suffering. Right. So it's like, I'm not saying, you know me, I don't walk around these streets morbid as fuck as people who are listening right now probably think. I just know that because I have a family, it's my now job to not only think about worst case scenarios, but also put myself in those so I could be better prepared for them. Right. And for the survival of my legacy. If you think about it, those kids, those offsprings are my legacy. It's all I have left. If everybody goes, the Burgos name goes in that sense. Right. So it's like, I'm foolish to not to prepare for that. Right. And I'm not a doomsday prepper, nor do I want that to happen. I am a little bit optimistic. And like you said, that something can happen, but more often than not, my final resting thought is, how does this get better? How does this get better without getting worse? I mean, it gets better over time, but it has to get worse.
I think if you look around right now, just speaking here in Austin, it has gotten better. Like I remember,
we're just getting started, but yeah.
But I mean, it's just like the greater community as far as like the Bitcoin community. Dude, I remember 2017, 2016, it was a bunch of shitcoin companies here. Like it was
but that's
all
one
shitcoiners.
Piece of it.
Yeah, that's one piece of it.
Okay.
But dude, that's now what I'm seeing, whether it's G in San Antonio or it's Jason in Round Rock or it's us here in the Central Austin or whether it's, Gary in Dallas or, whoever. Like the triangle is turning orange, man. The Texas triangle is turning orange.
Yeah.
And at some point people are going to realize it. And I think we're better prepared here in Texas. And I think there's a lot of people who we know personally that are doing things, on the
absolutely
on the other side that will get us there across the goal line. I'm bullish, dude. I'm bullish on Texas, but at the same time, I understand what you're saying.
I'm about to say, I think where we're kind of verging off is that like you keep going back to just the one solution of money. I'm talking about the other solutions that need to happen other than the money. But you're right. I mean, when it comes to the money, as Marty would say, we're going to win. Right? It's obvious. Like it's one of those things. But what I'm saying is there is a huge entity, whatever you want, the boogeyman, whatever you want to call it, that I think would be more incentivized to bring this shit down than to collaborate and give in to what you're saying.
And I think, and obviously I don't know anything.
Too many hands in the pot. That's my point.
But so what I'm trying to understand, are you saying that that's going to take down everything here?
They're willing to, like war, basically. They're willing to take down society in order to basically be replaced. And it's hard to say that because you're thinking, who's they? Well, that's what I mean. It's that big entity. And those patriots that you spoke of just have no control over the bigger apparatus that is above them, right? Like our founding fathers warned of government, right? And here we are. So to me, it's like, yeah, if Texas turns orange, basically in a world where they bring war to us or war to the population, the last thing people are going to be able to do or care about is transact their Bitcoin. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's not going to do anything to protect you. In that scenario, I want people, first of all, people know my line. I don't know shit about shit. I'm just theorizing here. But my point of the matter is that like we always get tunnel visioned on if we fix the money, the flowers and the beautiful green fields come. And what I'm saying is that's only a piece of the equation, because in a world where transacting currency is the last thing on people's minds, not that it disappears, but it's the last thing on people's minds, you're going to kick yourself in the fucking ass when you realize that you didn't learn any of the other survival skills that you need in order to flourish in that new world, to possibly get yourself to the better world that inevitably will come. That's my point.
Yeah. This is where I'll say it differently. I think I see what you're saying, and I think other skills obviously are important and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But you were saying last thing you're gonna be worried about is transacting your Bitcoin. I think that's a first thing.
It might be.
I actually think the opposite will happen. I actually think that in a scenario, let's say today, right? There is a lot of here in Austin, people are saying that we're going to get attacked. There was like news items that are popping up, but it's all over the local news too.
Sure.
Let's say hypothetically that happens today, right?
Yep.
the first thing people are going to do is like, how do we get to shelter, survival, all the things that you described.
Sure.
The second thing is like, do I have enough money either to escape or to purchase these items?
Yeah.
And let's say this happened on a global scale, right? Like the dollar would probably not be backed anymore at that point if it happens on a global scale. The only thing that people are going to accept is Bitcoin. I mean, what else would you accept at that? Unless they really do like this whole kind of like, you know, this where they like cut the lines to the internet and we all can't transact. And
well, my thing is that like you were talking about like if this were to happen today or whatever, the real honest truth is nobody's going to accept Bitcoin because we're 10% of the world. So you're not going to go anywhere.
At least here locally, we would accept Bitcoin.
The second part about it is
take cash.
Well, I'll take bullets.
Okay.
I'll take food.
Okay. So you're saying there'd be other
100%.
But if I came to your door and I was like, Jose, like, hey, I got some Bitcoin to give you for some of that food, you're saying no?
No.
Oh wow.
No.
Okay.
No. I'm not saying that like if like all right, let's say that time frame now expands out to a year, right? And then like it starts to get a little more stable, but it's still that universe where you have to barter. Then the Bitcoin becomes a thing because people are gonna be like, well, I don't necessarily need your bullets. I got plenty of those, but I'll take the Bitcoin. Right? And then I'll barter that Bitcoin. And you have to find that person.
Well, I guess we'll see.
But in the very beginning, if shit goes, first of all, people always have it in their head that if something goes down, they're just going to like exile to a different country. Good luck. Right?
Like passport wise, you mean?
I just mean like the first thought, and I'm not a pro at this, I don't know shit about shit. My first thought is you hunker down. My first thought is you need to gauge the situation and understand what's happening globally. Because if my first thought is I'm going to escape to a different state or a different country and I'm going to take my Bitcoin with me, well, what if you're just walking into the shit? You know what I'm saying? So like my first thought is going to be is hunker down. Do we have enough ammunition? Do we have enough food? Do we have what we need to basically hunker down for a little bit till we get a lay of the land before we decide if we're going to move? And in that time frame, I'm going to want to barter bullets with you or whatever. I'm not bartering Bitcoin with you because the Bitcoin, especially if nobody wants it, it's valueless to me at that point. I can't do anything to survive with it. Now, on the other hand, if that switches where like now people are saying, yeah, I'll give you bullets for Bitcoin. I'll give you meat for Bitcoin. Then I'm in a good position because I have Bitcoin. But my thing is I need to barter things that I need. So if you, let's just say I got rations. I got a lot of food. Right. But I don't got a lot of bullets, but you got a lot of bullets. I'm not going to go to you and say, hey, I want your Bitcoin for bullets. I'm going to say, hey, I'm got what you don't have, rations, and I'm willing to barter for bullets for my defense. And that's going to be the real trading that's going to be happening. Right. And if what we're saying actually happens, not, hey, I got Bitcoin, man. Like they're going to be like, what the fuck am I going to do with that?
Yeah. I think here, I can only speak to Texas because this is what I know. Right.
Yeah.
Like, Yeah, I think you're right. Maybe there would be more bartering on the other avenues of interest for the goods and services, whatever. Yeah, I think you're right there. I don't think it would go crazy because I remember when we had the snowpocalypse here.
Yeah,
everybody was helping each other. There wasn't a lot of food. There was no water, and everybody was helping each other.
Yeah.
So I have seen it already happen in Austin.
Yeah.
I think, and that was like 3 or 4 days in a row.
Sure.
And everybody was helping each other, whether like our neighbors giving them food or giving them water. It was natural, but in a scenario where we don't know when the stuff is going to get turned back on or whatever, maybe that changes.
That's the change. Right
but
there.
I would imagine if they're going to do something like this, they'd be like, oh yeah, it's happening in a couple of days. And they'll keep saying, oh, it's happening. But people like us would know like, it's never going to turn back around.
Yeah.
So start
remember
preparing.
2 weeks.
Yeah, remember 2 weeks. It's not going to be 2 weeks. It's going to be the rest of our
so
lives.
And then time is the equation for Bitcoin to be useful here. So I'm talking about that immediate future when everything happens. As the world starts,
maybe the world starts changing after
it starts to stabilize a bit, and it's still rough.
In this new world,
right? It's still rough. It starts to stabilize a bit, but then a currency is needed because now it's not about bartering for immediate needs. Now is like, hey, I want to hold on to this for a while, right? Because the gold thing.
This is not real talk. This is like doomsday talk.
Yeah, and I hate to bring that because I was actually,
don't know, like I didn't expect to talk about this.
And I'm having a good day, so I didn't expect to do it either.
It's interesting though to hear your side on all this stuff.
Well, I mean, it's a little bit of case.
I'm learning a little bit about you. So don't go to Jose for bullets. Don't go Jose with your Bitcoin.
It depends. What do you got that I don't got? If you got rations and I don't, then I got to feed my kids. And you may get some bullets.
Hey,
first aid kits. Maybe you need like like disinfectant is gonna be like alcohol and things like that.
I have water.
That may be valuable. You see what I'm saying? Like, but my thing is that like we're circling back to the beginning is I'm not a doomsday. I'm a casual prepper, if that makes sense. Meaning that like I'm not Naziing about this stuff. I'm not just going to bed at night thinking about holy crap, I don't have enough rations or whatever. What I'm saying is what stops me from learning how to shoot better? What stops me at learning some jujitsu, some defense?
Jiu-jitsu.
What stops me at
knowing kung fu?
Learning kung fu, learning how to grow my own food. What stops me to doing those things so that I could more functionally be better for the worst scenario like the Stoics were? Listen, Seneca was one of the most richest real estate owners in that time in Rome. Seneca was a very rich guy. He was part of government, right? What made Seneca want to give himself torture? Like, what is the logic behind? The logic behind that is that most motherfuckers fall asleep at the wheel and thinks worst case scenario will never come their way. But if you practice in worst case scenario, you are elite when worst case scenario comes. You are able to take care of those people that you swear you're going to take care of. Because that's another thing about parents nowadays. And then there's not, it's a lot of loose talk. It's a lot of fairy tale. I will do anything. Will you? Will you, when the time comes, do anything for your kids? If you're not prepared, I'm going to garner that you're not going to do everything that it takes to take care of your kids. Not because you don't want to, but because you're not prepared. Therefore, you're not in control of that situation. Therefore, you have to panic, and therefore, everybody's in trouble. See what I'm saying?
Now that's real talk.
That's real talk.
Oh man, dude.
Yeah. Anyway,
that was a good.
Yeah. Let's get better to. Let's get to some happier times.
Yeah, dude. What are you doing this weekend?
What am I doing this weekend?
Are you doing some jiu-jitsu?
I don't even know if I want to dox that and to people.
No, I mean you can just.
I'm just kidding. Yeah, I will be doing jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu is really fun. I don't think that's a secret, especially here in Austin. I think jiu-jitsu is massive here in Austin.
Really?
Yeah.
I always wanted to get into boxing.
Me too, but I don't want to get punched in the face.
Okay.
Yeah, so like I want to train like a boxer, but I don't want to spar because I don't want to get punched in my
Even if
head.
you wear the head stuff?
I mean, it's still trauma to your head. You're still getting punched in the head.
Don't fight somebody like obviously.
Well, hold on. So if we're sparring in boxing and you just happen to run into my left, I'm supposed to stop you?
Well, no, I mean, obviously, like, hey, did you never box as a kid with your friends? Like, did you guys ever do that? I know
we got fucked up. That's probably why I'm crazy.
No, I mean, we used to do it to where like we would just like spar, but we always would say, hey guys, don't go 100, go to 50.
Well, my point is shit happens. I'm not saying you're gonna, shit happens. But jiu-jitsu, same thing. Like we go at 60, right? But if you get me in a weird shoulder compromised situation and you just move the wrong way, you could hurt my shoulder. Really
I see
bad.
what you're saying.
Or if you don't acknowledge or hear my tap, right? Like if my hand, like if I can't actually tap and I have to say tap, right? But I can't, and you just keep going because you think you can hurt my shoulder, right? So like things happen is my point. But back to the point, like you need to be able to go through some shitty shit to be ready for the real shit. Because at one point in time, you will have to defend yourself at one point in time. And this is not even back to the post-apocalyptic stuff we were talking about.
This is just day-to-day
This is just Saturday night at the bar or Friday night at the bar, right? You could punch somebody in the face. They could die because they could fall and hit a chair or something. You go to jail for life. Why? Because you punch somebody in the face. On the other hand, somebody could try to punch you in the face. You could leverage them in a different way where you could bring their asses down safely. You can put them to sleep till the police come. You both walk away from that situation.
Or you could be like Carr and just don't go out on Friday, Saturday night and avoid all
I'm like that too, but
avoid all of that.
Hey man, it could be at a birthday party. You never know. People get reckless, bro.
Did you ever,
listen, I have
did your parents ever tell you this thing? They told me, they're like, Carr, nothing good happens after 10 p.m.
That's 100% true though.
Yeah.
I think I've heard it later, like 12 or 1. But the point is at night, nothing good is happening for sure. Often. So it's better to just be equipped in these situations. And I'm not saying that somebody who knows jiu-jitsu can never be phased or never, you can fuck up for sure. Yeah. But what I'm saying is I'm doing the education for the future person that brings it to me, because I'm going to make sure that we both safely get out of that situation. Yeah. Whether he goes to jail and I go home, whether we both just go home, but I'm going to go home to my kids. He's going to go wherever he goes, but he's not going to be dead. And I'm not going to be doing life in jail.
Yeah.
And that's preparation. That's because I chose to do that, to learn these new skills. And to loop back, the cryptographic part is that all this stuff is freely available right now. But as we've seen before, very easily they could say, hey, you learning how to defend yourself is illegal. That information is cut, right? So like, if we learn how to like make the digital version of ourselves, we can continue that education. This is a small example, and I don't know much about it. I don't want to get into it, but like 3D printing and guns is a really good scenario of this. You can never stop internet, right? You can never stop file sharing, right? You can never stop 3D printers. So therefore you can never stop printing guns, right? And they would want to put a bottleneck on that. But because we're able to use cryptography to share files, we're able to operate in the digital space with that information that right now is kind of a joke, but in a certain scenario could be life-changing.
Right.
So like, that's what I mean. Like, it's like, we want to fix the money, and we're going to win. And that mission is not over by any stretch of the imagination, because we're 10% of the world. And maybe all the shit that I'm saying now changes when 60% of the world adopt Bitcoin. But the way things stand right now, if you're just focused on the money, you'll be good, but you might not be good. And I think we should step back a little bit and see sovereignty for what it is. And that's being sovereign in food. That's being sovereign in health. That's basic sovereignty by definition, not the exact definition, but what I partake it as is you basically want to be in control of every single situation that you be control of. You want to control what your kids are being taught, so you take the sovereignty of homeschooling. You want to be in control of the food you eat, so you want to take the sovereignty in either meeting the farmer or getting your own food. You want to be able to defend, not only from a combat standpoint, shooting a gun, to a physical altercation standpoint, defending yourself. And you also want to share that energy and that education with those that you want to do the same. Like, I want my wife to defend herself. I want my sister to eat well because she's having some medical situations, right? So I need to be able to share that information. In the current state, I can do that by a phone call. In the future state, digital Jose may need to share this information with digital, my sister's nickname is Nana, with digital Nana, because that's the world we're in. But we're not preparing for those situations. So when that time comes, we're going to be doofuses. We're going to be like the bottom layer of people. In that example, in that hierarchy, not because we are doofy, but because for whatever reason we chose to ignore these things and maybe just focus on one thing or focus on other things. Man, how did you get this convo out of me, bro?
Dude, every time you talk about this stuff, I think to myself, I'm like, damn, I'm so fucking unprepared, Jose.
I think we all are. So like, sort of like,
like right now, it's just like you're just like stressing me out. I'm like, oh fuck, I got to do this.
See, that's where I said I'm not Nazi about it. So I'm sorry that I'm stressing you out or the listener. That's not the point. But I'm trying to encapsulate a lot
these
of
are good things. I'm not saying they're bad. It's just like I need a whiteboard to start knocking some of these out.
Well, when you start encapsulating these things into one conversation, it seems like a lot. But when you start spreading these things out,
how did you start knocking some of them out?
Oh, I mean, I've always, weight was always the obvious one. Food, weight, right? Like, so I battled that my whole life. And then, what happened in Massachusetts during COVID, Bitcoin for sure, because Bitcoin showed me that there is a way. And then Austin, Texas, right? Like that freedom, that sovereignty, being able to walk into a store, pick up a defense weapon, not being ostracized for wanting to defend yourself, right? Texans are proud of defending themselves, of that property right, right? So like moving to Texas was a big part of that, but ultimately is being a dad, right? Like you've told me, many people told me you're a great father. Yeah, I think I am. But the thing is what my barometer for a great parent is preparing your kids for when you're not around anymore. Right. So like these are my early steps on preparing my wife and I for the initial need, which is us protecting them, but also hopefully teaching them and rubbing off these skill sets on them so that when we're gone, they're better off. They're the upper tier of people and not the lower tier of people. Because it's very easy, especially with convenience, to become a lower tier person, to be dependent on everything. When I was in Massachusetts, I was dependent on my food information from the government. I was dependent on my money. I was depending on my everything, like my defense. I couldn't have a weapon up there. So it was like, oh, the cops will protect me. Right. Like I was.
Wow. Yeah. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
So I was like in these other locations. In the United States,
completely in dependency of the system.
Wow. Yeah,
so
that sounds. I don't even know how to live like that.
Right. So my thing is that now in a situation where I have control of that, and I have a better understanding of what that means, is I'm not gonna like go into every conversation telling people do this, do that, do this. But like you put me on this platform, and I have a platform to be able to at least let people know, like, hey, there's ways for you not to get rug pulled, not just in your money, but in your life. And you got to actively want to work on that. If you don't, then, you could get rug pulled in a lot of different facets. And I'm not mastering all of them by any stretch of the imagination, right? Like, and that's the thing. Like you could get rug pulled, and you could be really good at eating and all that stuff and health and not be in the hospital a lot, but you could get rug pulled because you don't know how to defend yourself, and et cetera, et cetera. It goes down this train. But to be quite frank, Car, we're having this conversation because, like you said, it's real talk. But yeah, man, I still have a positive vibe about my day, bro. I'm still optimistic about things. I have to be for that same reason, because I'm a dad.
Yeah, dude. I love the conversation where it's headed right now, because you're this is why I love talking to you. Like when I asked you on, was it earlier this week or last week, and you were like, are you just having me on just as filler? And I was like, why the hell would you think that? Like, I was like, damn, really?
Yeah.
You would think that? But no, I had you on because these are some of the things that I've been writing about.
Nice.
Not so much on the whole food and all that kind of stuff, but just on the surveillance stuff. And my mind was already kind of going here this week. And then I wanted to talk to you today because there was a piece that I have in my head. Yeah, I don't know how you write or when you do write, but like for me, I'll make like, I have this app called Minimalist, and I'll start throwing stuff in there.
Sure.
And I'll have these ideas and these talking points about what I want to talk about or write about. And sometimes I need to flesh out these ideas and understand them better. And then like I was like, oh, this is perfect. I know Jose knows a lot about this stuff. Yeah. I want to talk to him. I had talked to Carmen last week, and I was like, okay, well, let me talk to Jose. The last time I think I saw you was at Bit Block Boom. Yeah. You talked a little bit about this already, but I was like, okay, cool. And my mind was already headed there. So for me, it was like, let me talk to Jose, and then I'm working on a piece right now for Sunday. But hell yeah, man. It's like for me, it's just really about like how much information, how much more help can I provide the community around me, and if that just starts with informing them about this stuff, I think that's a good start. Sure, and that's where I feel like I can help out, at least on the Thriller platform side. Yeah.
Yeah, there's many things. I mean, you brought it up earlier because we were talking about the thing over here in the corner, but like, you know, that's Kate the Russian talks about a lot of that sovereignty stuff that's outside of the Bitcoin space, right? Like it's all pertaining to Bitcoin, right? Because we understand that we fixed our currency, at least us Bitcoiners have. But it to me, it's just lately has been a lot bigger than that. Like I will always stack sats, fam. But it's like, what else can I do to better prepare for life? And the world it's a history. And the globe is just literal proof of everything that I'm talking about. This is happening all over the world, and we just choose to ignore it. That's fine. But like, yeah, you go any part of the world and you start asking people about food or about sovereignty or about privacy or about defense or about, and they're going to scream at the top of their lungs how unfair the world is, especially in places that can't defend themselves with weapons. So yeah, I'm no doomsday stuff. It's just preparation, man. It's just being a better Jose. That's it.
I love it. There's your pod. You've been you've been kind of sporadic with your pod. I'm looking at it right now. You've been making episodes and inform the Thriller audience. Like what are you thinking about as far as talking in bits? This kind of new phase, if it is a new phase, like what are you working on the podcast side? Because dude, I love the pod. I've loved the pod for 2 years already at this point. Yeah. Like I've always been a fan of what you did with your early on co-hosts and even now. And you have tremendous guests on there. Yeah. You always go hard in the paint, but that's who you are. That's just your style. Got to. So I respect it. But like, tell me what are you thinking for the pod now? Cause I know you're extremely busy with the Unchained stuff and then the production stuff that you do.
Yeah, man, just figuring out myself, and I'm so loyal to grateful, I should say, to the Talking in Bits listeners because they gave me a lot of grace during that time. I wanted to get my creativity out to more arenas, and that's what production is kind of all about. So I took on a lot of production work, which came at the expense of Talking in Bits, quite frankly, and then controlling or managing, I should say, is a more accurate term, Unchained's whole audio video platform. It takes a lot. And I was just talking to Keon before we sat down and like, you got to go all in on certain things, especially something as important as Unchained. Right. So that's where my time has been. But what I decided to do, because I'm passionate about my feelings, and Talking in Bits was always the place where I could do that. I just lowered the bar, and now, it's just audio only for now. Brought on Kevin as a co-host. If you heard part 1 of this 2-piece, you'll hear some of Kevin. Shout out to Kevin. But basically I'm back and having fun with it. I'm back having conversation with it. The listeners didn't go anywhere. They're back, which is awesome. I appreciate every one of them. And as for Talking in Bits, I wanted literally, I've always wanted this, but now more than ever, considering this conversation as well, I want it to be a double entendre on the talking and on the actual title of the show itself. And what I mean by that is, we all know bits as a very small fraction portion of Bitcoin.
Wait, are you a bits guy, not a sats guy?
No, I'm a sats guy, 100%.
Okay, cool. I was just making sure.
But bits still exist in the space. So to me, like the original concept was, is I'm talking about Bitcoin and I'm talking about it in pieces and bits. So talking in bits. But I also want it to be a generalized conversation about life, because what I figured out the last, year, if anything, is that life is seasons, right? Life is a series of seasons and moments, and it passes. So for me to try to say that I need to honor just talking about Bitcoin, or I need to keep my show a certain way, obviously it's not true, because I'm more passionate about other things. And conversely, my early co-hosts, my solo rip days, my new co-hosts, like, it's obviously seasons that are playing out, and there's different flavors. So what I would just welcome the listeners, the new listeners that come from Thriller, or the new list, or the old listeners, or whatever, is just keep riding with me, right? Because this journey that I'm on, I'm actually documenting it live on air.
Yeah, talk about because I don't think you've ever talked about it, but what is it like running a production company of a sort inside one of the biggest, Bitcoin spaces, communities in the world? Like, well, what is it like doing production in that space and being that guy? Like when people know, like, hey, you want high quality stuff, like go to Jose. Like, what is it like running a business like that with that amount of pressure?
So there's two facets. So for what I do for, Spotlight Coalition, which is my own thing, that's a little bit more of, everything, right? And that takes up a lot. As for your question about Unchained, well, I have, it's amazing. And the reason I say that is because I'm not solo. So I have the benefit of having great minds in the marketing team that are peers with me. Stephen Hall, shout out to Stephen Hall, who writes very well, who's a blog. And a lot of my content is basically seeds of his blogs, of his writings, of topics that we talk about all the time. So Jose doesn't have to be the originator, the creator, the promoter, the pusher. Like, there's systems in place where I could just focus on the actual, work, the creation of it, or the putting it together of it. So that's much more different than running your own business. And
the editing too, right? The editing and the color grading.
Yeah, the color grading, all the stuff, the capturing, right? So I'm actually capturing the events and stuff. So
just so the plebs know at home, like this shit's really hard. Like
it's extremely hard
to get high quality. Video and audio,
right,
in a work setting, I would say, is extremely hard.
A lot of coordination.
Shout out Logan. Like Logan
shout out to Logan.
Grown tremendously over the course of my time knowing him.
This is one that's underrated. How great of a project manager you have to be.
100%.
It's so difficult.
But me seeing you take Unchained's that whole side to another level, quite frankly. It's a testament to you and that team that's working behind you. Like, dude, it's extremely like high quality. And like, man, for me personally, like, fucking love it, dude.
Well, working with me, right? Like, they're not working behind me, they're working with me, and that's great. And yeah, man, it's good to have a bunch of studs and professionals. And look, I'm very fortunate in the sense that, like, yeah, all the stuff we just said is difficult. And I'm not saying that my job is easy, because it really is not. But like, if you think about it, like, I'm capturing the elites in the space. Like, I'm constantly in rooms capturing film from Juve Buntal, right? From like the Parker Lewises of the world, the Turd Demeesters of the world, right? Like, I've been in the room being able to capture this stuff. So it's like, the work is one thing, but like the enjoyment and the fulfillment, especially from somebody who's coming from Massachusetts, who, if you would have asked a few years ago, would have told you I would have never even spoken to any of these people, never mind capture them and be able to organize that information. It's very humbling to me. And that's because of Unchained and what they've done to the space and their contributions to the community, which I love, right? Like, I was telling Keon a little while ago, like, I'm not doing video work for something I don't believe in. I'm doing video work for something that I extremely am belief in. And that Unchained team, from top to bottom, from Joe to Drew, all the way down to me, the client services teams, super fucking rock stars. Like, that fucking team is really gung-ho on doing Bitcoin correctly. And it shows. That's not a secret, but I'm just grateful to be able to be plugged into that somewhere. So I'm glad that you see the vision. And I know, because you do production, that a lot of that is me, but I'm not going to take solo credit for that, because I'm better because they keep me sharp. I can't put bullshit out on that team. If I drop bullshit, they're going to push it back and be like, what is this? And they're going to make me better. And they have. I mean, you can watch Just go to the YouTube. This is an easy example. Don't even go to the Twitter. You can go to the Unchained YouTube. You can watch a video that maybe I've recorded with Tom Hanzik in April, and you can watch the one that just dropped 2 weeks ago, and you're going to be like, holy shit.
Yeah, I can see the progression.
Holy shit.
I can see it, yeah.
And that's because they keep me sharp.
You're still using those Panasonics?
Yeah, the GH5s.
Wow. Okay, wow. Okay.
Well, up to the GH5.
I was curious if you're still using that.
Yeah, man, those things are...
What lenses are you using again?
Huh?
What lenses?
So my favorite is 12 to 35 because of zoom, but my favorite prime lens, which is not zoom focused, is a 25 millimeter. I think it gives the best bokeh.
And those are, and I'm not too familiar with lenses.
Those are Lumix lenses.
Oh, Lumix, okay.
Yep, yeah. Lumix lenses. So those are my go-tos. They may not be
the best. Are you shotgunning everything as far as the audio?
Yeah. Voice recorder to the main out.
Is that through like, what are you using, a Tascam? What are you using?
I actually I'm giving my whole lineup here. What's up?
Dude, bro, come on, bro. You can't come on Thriller and then not want to talk audio production, bro.
I'm kidding, bro.
Get the fuck out of here. Come on. Of course you're going to tell me.
I'm kidding. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Zoom H6. I think it's phenomenal.
Really?
4 mic inputs, all phantom powered.
Fucking hate Zoom.
Maybe is it the same Zoom company as the?
No, I'm not saying Zoom that. I'm saying the
maybe they do shitty stuff.
Harder thing. How are you getting good? What are you using lavs or like what are you getting to get good?
Well, I use lavs when I'm doing like headshots recording. So when somebody's sitting down.
So how are you? What are you pushing out as far as like mics for that Zoom? You said it was H.
All right, let's give the scenario and then I'll give you the context use case. So we're talking about interviewing somebody, headshot. They're talking. I don't use the H6 for that. I use a lav mic.
To what?
A Tascam lav mic.
To what?
To the box. So
so you actually use the Tascams that we have here, the same.
Sure.
Ones? Oh wow, yeah.
Yeah, and that's for like a headshot.
And you're getting those in a quiet room that you're controlled as far as like the audio. A lot
of my audio treatment is done post. Right. So
you're throwing your own.
Yeah. So those mics definitely capture a lot. They're not really good.
Yeah. But you can clear
good.
out a lot of stuff.
Right. And they're good for what you need them for, which are headshot speaking.
Okay. And then so when are you shotgunning stuff? Just on the events?
The events, I'm actually I always have a shotgun mic on top of the camera because that's how I sync and post.
Oh, nice.
And also those for anybody who's listening out there who's doing production, always have a shock mic on your camera because there's been more than I can count with my hands times where that audio has saved me, where I didn't get the actual.
100.
So that might be a no-brainer, but don't use your camera's microphone because it's absolute trash.
Yeah, it's trash.
Put a little bit of money up, get a Rode, whatever you got to do, get it on top of all your cameras.
I didn't know that's what you're shooting over. And you're still using the same lights, right?
The what?
The same lights? You're still using the same lights?
Same lights. I switch a little bit more. I focus more on diffusion off bouncing objects instead of direct. So when I first got here in Austin, I was very direct, meaning I would just lower the temperature and just stay direct. Yeah. And now I'm a little bit more focused on mimicking natural light. So
you're hitting it on all fours, bro. Like, you're hitting it on all fours.
I'm trying, man.
Lighting, editing, video, audio.
Editing, I've become a monster at editing.
Yeah, but even the grading that you're doing too looks really clean, bro.
Thanks, man. I mean, what I'm learning over time, and I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. Nothing I'm doing is original. It's just more.
I mean, but like to be honest, dude, like there's not a lot of people that can pull off that shit. Like, especially in Bitcoin.
Yeah, standing on the shoulders of giants. I mean, shout out to Logan again, but the rug thing was pretty high quality, bro.
Dude, he did that. He knocked that out in 26 hours.
That's what I mean.
But that's what I'm trying to say. Like, but there's not a lot of people like that.
Sure.
And I don't think Bitcoiners actually understand how hard that really is.
No,
there's a lot in the fiat side because the fiat side will pay really, really well for those people.
Sure.
But on the Bitcoin side, there's a handful of us.
That's because the Bitcoin community is content with shitty quality, right? Like their information is what they're interested in, and not necessarily the quality of it.
Yeah,
but what I
don't agree with that.
Me neither. And what they haven't caught up to is that like sometimes information that's really good
deserves this,
deserves it, and it will stick out to you. Meaning you could have missed it if you didn't care about quality, but the quality made you absorb that information, right? Yeah. You stopped to listen to that because of the quality.
Yeah.
But we'll get there as a standard. It's all about a budget thing too. A lot of Bitcoin companies are not on the budget to do so, right? Like
100%.
You can't print money in Bitcoin companies, I guess. So
yeah.
But yeah, no, like you're right. It's just attention to detail, and over time I've learned it. But what I have learned a lot is, and this might have been obvious, but it wasn't to me, is try to get it as, and this is a tip as well, try to get what you're capturing at best from the camera capture level, right? Like a lot of people know all the software, all the AIs, and they're like, "Oh, I could fix this in post. Don't worry about it. Oh, I could do that."
That's my line all the time.
It is. It was mine, but it is a huge difference to get it right from the capture.
No, point. I know what you're saying. That's
you
always.
Should.
I know. No, I know. It's one of those like whenever like Logan's doing something, like, just fix it in post.
Yeah, and you can.
But it gets you in trouble.
It does,
Yeah.
and it doesn't give you the ultimate desired.
It's just now. It's just a joke.
Yeah, no, but like, man, I'm super grateful, Car.
I'm not. I'm saying like, no, you're right. Never say that. Never do that. But
well, I'm gonna kick back on that. Me doing that for so long also made me a ninja in the edit table, right? Because you have to.
You're right. You have to figure it out. That's a good point.
And you learn a lot of shit, dude.
That's a good point.
Just figuring it out, you learn. So I'm not but I'm saying if you can get it right from the camera, do that because it's gonna save your edit. It's gonna give you your vision you wanted. Yeah. And sometimes when you're in an environment, especially in a live event where you're kind of racing to do stuff, like you got to make sure you give yourself the time to get it right.
That's where I think I've personally gotten better over time is the live event stuff.
I love them now. I hated them before, but I'm a big fan of them.
Like to me, it's more about creating a cadence on the live event stuff and maintaining composure through it all. Like, and I feel like for that little, but when you go to somebody else's event and you see how they handle their thing, and then you see how wrong a lot of that setup is.
Sure.
Then you're like, oh, you can kind of say like, okay, they should do this different. They should do that. Like, there's a lot of things that when I go to other places and I'm seeing how I'm like, I wouldn't have done it that way. Yeah, because I've done it enough times. But if they ever come to me and ask me afterwards, I'm like, yeah, you should look into this. Because I think the live event stuff, the streaming, all the high quality stuff like that, like to capture the moment. And I learned this early on, just during my TFTC days, but like, just you're trying to capture Led Zeppelin live, like don't fuck up, like have like backups of backups, like in different aspects of it.
And just to give you your due in that, and you gave me all my grace on what I'm good at. I'm terrible at live streaming stuff.
Really?
So, yeah. I mean, I haven't had much practice. Not many people that I work with want to do live stream. But I have an idea of how I would pull it off. But I think I would
show you how to do it.
I was about to say, I think I'd be one of those people though, that if I tried it, you would be like, damn, bro, like, don't do that.
I help you.
I know you would, but I'm saying that you just gave an example of like you seeing other people. I would be that person. You would be like, dude.
Well, to you, somebody like, I'd be like, Jose, this is a way easier way to do this.
Right.
And then I would show you how to, because for me, I've always, in the beginning, when I started this journey, I've always started with like kind of like a guitarist, right? You're like, I want every pedal imagined.
Yeah.
There's this Freaks and Geeks episode. You could probably YouTube, and there's this guy, he's like trying to be a drummer, and he's a big fan of Neil Peart of Rush, and he gets like every freaking drum thing, the bell, the cowbell, like everything, the everything. And he's just like, in the beginning of the episode, he's just like trying to drum along Neil Peart and like doing all these things. And I've quickly realized as I've gotten older, the minimalist aspect of creation and the smaller amount of footprint that it takes for me to carry this gear around is far more important to me than it is having every color in the thing. It's like how many, like if I'm looking at creating a painting, like how many primary colors do I really need here?
Yeah.
And what allows me to show the subtleness to that primary color. Yeah. And so when I look at like audio or video production live, it's like, what is crucial that I actually need to sustain and make this actually happen with very few pieces of gear in place?
Sure.
Because for me, it's more about the live stuff. It's more about the presentation and more about the presenter and the audience participation than it is about you sticking your fat kind of like whole production set in the middle of the fucking crowd.
Yeah.
Like to me, that's just like the dumbest way to do it. It's like, bro, you need to blend in like the fucking wallpaper. Do you know what I mean? Like that's just kind of how I've always,
you're right.
That's how I've always looked at it. And if you're standing out, you're doing something wrong. And I'm saying that from my perspective, when I run Pleb Lab events, it's like, this is the quality that we need to hit and we're not hitting it.
Yeah.
Then there's a problem. And we need
I agree with you on all of it, but standing in front of the crowd, I've had to do that in a lot of events. But it's also like the gear you have. Like, do you have a lens that can go that far so you can be out of the way, right? Also, the goals of the presentation. Did the person who's presenting tell you my priority is what I do with this after?
Yeah, there's a checklist,
right? Like if they tell you the priority is that I'm going to share this and what I do after, you better get them cameras really close.
The live stuff has more to do with a checklist and anticipating problems
Sure.
than anything else.
Absolutely.
It's like audio goes out, car, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, my plan B is
So there's
to
a
do
use
this.
case for everything. Once again,
Live stream goes out, car, what are you doing? Oh, my plan B is this.
Right.
And a C.
Yeah.
Like it's just like you're setting it up. And
You gotta
don't
have
get
to
me wrong. There's sometimes I get it wrong, completely
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah, 100%.
Fall face. And it was extremely worse in the early days.
Yeah.
It's gotten better over time. And it'll continue to get better. But it's just like, yeah, dude, there's different facets to this.
This shit is hard.
Also, I had a realization the other day. Was like, dude, Austin, the Bitcoin media capital of the world too? Or no, question mark. Like,
But it's still fiat though. Like most of the media stuff
as
is
far as like the Bitcoin media companies here, there's just a lot of media companies here.
Bitcoin wise?
Yeah.
Oh, am I missing out? Which ones are they?
Talking in bits.
Oh, okay. I was thinking
Like-
about like just
like-
straight shooting. Okay, you
But
talking
like
about
all
just
the
like,
podcasts that are here, like
Yeah.
all the media stuff that gets created out of here.
what do you think? It's shortchanged? Like it's not.
No, I'm saying like it's vibrant.
It is.
It's probably more vibrant than any other place in the world, I would imagine.
It just depends on how you come into it, man. Like, cause even if it's vibrant, if you didn't come into it with a video perspective, like if you've never watched the movie and be like, yo, that camera panning right there is crazy, then you don't give a shit about that quality. You don't give a fuck about that. You may focus just on audio. You be like, yo, I want my mics to be perfect. And then vice versa. Somebody who comes from a different could care less about the mic. It's probably like over here. And then the video's on point. So it's like, it really kind of depends on what it comes in. But a little bit has to do with just caring about what you're doing. Like I care about talking a bit so much that it needs to have, or it used to have the lights and have the cameras and have all that, whatever. And like, that's just a level that most people don't want to get to. They just don't want to do that. Either they can't afford it or they have to learn all these different things, or they got to pay somebody to do it and they don't want to do all of those things.
I think it's far more important to follow your passions than anything else in life.
100%. You'll learn the most. You'll be the most content in life if you follow your passions.
You'll be the most happy, even when you're struggling.
Yeah, because like I said, circling back to the Unchained thing, like my days are pretty stressful in a good way, but it's because they're busy, they're productive, but I love what I do. So it doesn't feel that way. It just feels like, we are I'm going to say we are the premier Bitcoin company in the space. And like we need to work this hard because that's the standard we set and we need to keep, right? The Bitcoin standard of client service is the Bitcoin standard of media.
Man. You guys are the anchor in Austin.
It's just,
and honestly, like I've always looked at Unchained as a big brother personally.
Sure.
Like,
and it is the Austin thing for sure.
Yo, can we, but like that's, I think there's a lot of people that look at it that way, at least here in Austin.
But Unchained cares about the Bitcoin community.
Yeah.
That's why you can say that, right? If they didn't care about the Bitcoin community, you would have been like, nah, they're the ugly stepchild of Bitcoin, right? But to this day, and the Commons is the perfect example of that. Unchained cares about the Bitcoin community.
Yeah, got some real ones over there,
and that shows, right? So, like to me, it's like the Austin is definitely a thing because it's the Mecca. But like, I think Joe and Drew would have got this off anywhere just because of who those guys are, their previous experience at building things up, and their philosophy behind doing it the right way, and their low time Drew would say conservative approach to building, right? Understanding that they might have got less money, less users, less clients because they did it the right way, right? And then you had the BlockFis of the world that were like raising rounds and making all this, but they were doing it the wrong way, and have the patience to understand we're going to stick to our guns and we're going to do it the way we want to do it. And they were proven right by the market. It just collapsed because they were doing it the wrong way. And now the thesis that Joe and Drew and a bunch of others had is now playing itself to be the correct thesis, even though they had that thesis 6 years ago. Yeah. And I'm super grateful to be a part of that, man. I really am. I tell you all the time, I'm just a kid from the projects, bro. Nobody should listen to anything I'm saying. But if they see my trajectory in life, it's 100% up and to the right. So it's like, don't listen to me, watch me. Right? That's kind of my thing. Like, I don't know shit about shit is that. It's like, if you listen word for word, you might think this guy's just this. This guy's just, you might have an opinion, right? This guy's a ranter. This guy's angry. This guy's this, that. Okay, don't listen to me, but watch what I'm doing. And you're going to see that obviously I'm onto something and I'm doing something correctly. So take it for what it's worth, people.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
Life is good, Carl. We get to have combos like this, man. We get to chill. We get to do all this. Life is good, bro.
Yeah, I'm not complaining. There's so many things to be grateful for
100%
these days. Even though we started the pod off with some doomsday.
Well, real talk. That was real talk. Right?
Yeah,
like
I think
doomsday, whatever. That's real talk.
I think it's necessary talk.
If nobody's talking to you about this stuff, then they may not have your best interest in mind.
I wouldn't go that far. There's some people that are just ignorant to all this stuff.
Sure, but that if you know it, and you're not trying to share it with the people you care. I'm not saying make people do it. It's up to the person to do it. But man, who am I to be, you know, attaining and learning all this stuff and not want to share with the people I love? Makes me selfish is what it is. Scarcity mindset. That's not me, bro.
I don't think you're selfish.
It can appear to be though if I were to keep all this information to myself.
I think you're more of a matcher.
Of a matcher?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
There's this great book.
Don't throw words at me, bro.
I shill it all the time. I get shit for it because everybody's like, "Oh, Carl, you're always bringing up that book," but it's a great book.
That's
dude.
not a horoscope thing, is it?
No,
Okay.
dude, come on.
All right.
It's no. I mean, if anybody that's into that stuff, but no, it's more like there's this good book. Let me look it up again. But it's called Givers, Takers, Matchers.
Sounds like a dating book, bro.
It's not, dude.
I'm just saying. It's what it sounds like. I didn't say it was. I'm a matcher though. What's a matcher? Am I good?
Givers, takers.
That sounds like a wussy. A matcher sounds like a wuss.
Takers and matchers. Hang on, let me see here. What's the name of the book? It's been a long time.
Can you tell me what a matcher is before you look up the book?
Well, anyway. Oh yeah, there you go. It's Give and Take. That's what it's called.
Give and Take. Okay.
It's
Who's the author?
By Adam Grant.
Adam Grant. Okay. Shout out to Adam Grant. I've read his books before.
Anyway, but it's just like typically when you meet people, I would say more on the business side than it is on like in just regular life or friends or whatever.
Sure.
There's people that will give continuously, almost to their own detriment. And there's people that will take continuously, almost to their own detriment of others.
Sure.
And then there's people that'll match. And people that will say, hey, I know it's kind of like the value for value stuff you talk about. They will say, oh, Car, I'll give you these bullets or this meat for your bullets, but it needs to be fair. You know, other people might be like, I personally, I'm more of a giver. I'd be like, here you go. So you can just have the bullets. I know you'll help me out later on if I ever get in a spot. So I think there's just different personalities in that throughout life. And especially on the business side, I don't really think about it on a friends. Like we're friends, so I don't think about it like that. But I think of it more of a, on the business side, it talks about like being a giver in business, being a taker in business, being a matcher in business. And based on that book, Adam proposes that the givers end up long-term being much more, don't want to use that word. I'll use being much more open to certain possibilities and
makes sense, bro.
Fruit that wouldn't necessarily be there if it wasn't for it.
Yeah.
It's just different philosophies on it. Doesn't mean it's right or wrong or it's complete bullshit. Because at the end of the day, it's just like, you know, it's a business running a business, but it's something to be said about. And
it's a nice framework.
Some people talk about it. I'm always like,
I wouldn't call it bullshit.
They're probably a matcher. They're probably a giver. They're probably a taker.
I wouldn't call it bullshit. I would just say it's subjective to the relationship. Like I'll be a giver to you, but I'll be a matcher to somebody else.
Oh, interesting.
You see what I'm saying? Like some people, you haven't built the repertoire with me for me to match anything. Like, what do you mean? Like my time is valuable, right? My time is scarce. I'm highly favored. Like, yeah, I don't have a relationship with you. You either match. I wouldn't say I ever take. Because I do.
Yeah, you're not a taker.
Yeah,
you're not a taker.
I do think
even
that,
like today, even like this week when I was like, come on the pod. And you're like, only if you come on my pod. I was like, okay, I guess.
You made it sound like that was my plan, but I just thought it was a good idea. I was like,
But no, it goes back to who you are. You're like, well, Car, I won't feel. To me, I took it as like, oh, Car, I won't feel comfortable unless you come on my pod too. And there's value for value.
Oh yeah, that's not what I'm sorry it came off that way.
Well, on text.
I just thought it was a good idea. And then you didn't know this, obviously, but like Kevin and I have also been having the conversation of bringing people on. So you kind of like fit that spot perfectly. And I know you could just make it.
Wait, I was your first guest with just you and Kevin?
Correct.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And he's pumped to have you. I'm always pumped to have you.
Dude, that was a good pod.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have John from Zap right next. But
nice.
That was an amazing pod. It'll be out tomorrow, depending on when you're listening to this. But yeah, no. So back to that. Yeah, I sometimes on the relationship, I'll give Car whatever. I'll give you the jacket off my back. But yeah, some people
That's a nice jacket.
You just don't have the repertoire, bro. Like you just don't.
What? Yeah. So I think we're getting close to ending this, but
it never ends.
What was the other thing we wanted to talk about?
Oh, pleb.
Oh shit.
Let's finish it off on that then. That's gonna be a good talk right here.
So pitch me this thing because you just talk about what you're talking about on talk. Go listen to Talking in Bits past episodes where you talked about this. Maybe the one previously from mine. I would imagine.
Under the Influence 5 with Kevin and Shane.
So talk about what you guys and right now I feel like this is just a conversation that people just want to have these days, and I don't know why, but I'd imagine it has something to do with me And what I do, I don't know.
So I think if you listen to that, and this is not a shameless plug, but I think if you do listen to the episode, you'll get, because I was in the moment there, and you'll get a better articulation of what I was trying to say. But I think the TLDR of the conversation, just so I could get your answer, is basically the term pleb and how that's used and if it should always apply. So my thesis is I'm not trying to like a lot of people who have this argument start to pinpoint the word like, oh, pleb means commoner. Pleb means lower tier. I'm not trying to go back to like the Roman definition or the old school definition of pleb. I'm just trying to say for whatever you aspire a pleb to be, at some point through proof of work, through education, through your proof of work, through what you give to Bitcoin, you elevate yourself out of that status. And I think what a lot of people are trying to do is they try to use the pleb moniker to kind of just say, oh, we're just builders, so we should always be such. That is true. You are the commoner. But at some point, you can't use that term anymore. You have to, whether it's maxi, whatever the next thing is, I'm not here to build that hierarchy. I'm just here to say that when I hear, and I always go to Parker just because he's always around and then I see him a lot. If I were to hear, I'm not saying I have, if I were to hear Parker call himself a pleb in the middle of a thing, I would have to double take on that because I don't consider him a pleb at all. And it has nothing to do with his Bitcoin stack. That's another thing somebody told me, if you have a lot of Bitcoin, you're not a pleb. No. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the hierarchy of Bitcoiners.
So let me weigh in.
Yes, sir.
So this is my take on it. Obviously, I have a company that I work for called Pleb Lab. So doesn't mean I'm speaking to that right now, but I think people want me to voice my opinion on it because you're not the first person that has told me this. Like, yo, Car, what do you think about this? Yep. And like, people want me to comment on it. I guess I'm gonna make a comment on it today.
Yes, sir.
So personally, I'm talking strictly about how I see it, and it doesn't mean I'm right or wrong or whatever. But if for anybody who cares what I think, I think it means different things to different people. I personally believe that. I think when I came in, I thought of myself as a pleb. To this day, I still think of myself as a pleb, whether that's right or wrong. That's just who I see myself. I think living pleb ain't easy. I say that a lot.
Yeah.
I think it's extremely hard to live pleb.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of Bitcoiners who recognize themselves as plebs because they understand how hard it is to live pleb. Doesn't mean that I'm right in that way of thinking or whatever, but I think that's one aspect for me. That's how I look at it. Now, I also see it from this other lens, and I think this kind of goes to, I should say this too. There was a TabConf discussion around this very same topic.
Interesting.
And I won't say who was on the panel or whatever, but it's on YouTube. Go check it out. I think it was one of the most boringest panels that I had seen that week at TabConf. I think it was entirely boring. The only reason I had to sit through it was because we were announcing the hackathon winners right afterwards.
Gotcha.
But ideally, I would have not had sat through that. I think it was a complete waste of time.
Yeah.
Because I think, going back to what I just said right now, I think it means different things to different people, and they have different emotions attached to it and all that stuff. Having said that, I actually have heard somebody else a lot smarter than me say that the term pleb is just generational as far as like the Bitcoiner, if Bitcoin's on this timeline since its inception, the word pleb is kind of generational. I think if you look at prior, and I don't know the history of Bitcoin pretty well, as culturally pretty well, but somebody correct me on this. But I think the vast majority of us would say we're all Bitcoiners. So that's what we recognize. Or we know we're Bitcoiners. Like we understand that we're Bitcoiners. Yeah. But I think when you look at specific times in culturally in Bitcoin's history, there is a time when people used to call themselves toxic maximalists or extremists, extreme maximalists, whatever that thing was. Then there was a time where people were calling themselves plebs and all this kind of stuff. And I think it's just more generational. And I think right now in this current generation that we're in, I think the term pleb is needed to get shit off the ground. But when I came in 2021, there was a lot of Bitcoiners that were just sitting on their stacks, not doing shit. Yeah. And if you look at history, there was the plebs that did a lot of significant changes. And if you look back now, and I'm not just calling out myself, but I'm calling out like all the plebs around the world who have stepped up and done things in their local communities, it's a pleb movement.
100%.
That a lot of this like meetup culture, hacker culture, developer culture is because of the plebs. And it really started kicking off right after Jack made that announcement in Bitcoin, right? On Bitcoin conference, you know, and Lightning taking off right around the same time. So I think this generation requires that word to get shit off the ground, because quite frankly, the Bitcoiners from yesteryear weren't getting us there, and they weren't going to get us there. So to this day, when people are like, oh man, you know, don't be a pleb or don't like, I take that as a fucking badge of honor. Like, of course I'm a fucking pleb. So that's my stance on it. Obviously people are going to be like, damn, but this is real talk with Jose Burgos.
Nah, definitely the plebs are the builders for sure. That's not negotiable. My argument is always the hierarchy, right? So it's like, it's not that it shouldn't exist. I've never said that. I think it's just more maxis exist because plebs exist and vice versa. Right?
And I think once this kind of building phase ends, because it will at some point, I don't know when that year will be, there'll be a new term, and there will be these different types of people.
Well, the hierarchy starts to build out. Is my point.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. It'll probably this term will go away, and somebody else will use a different moniker.
Yeah,
whether it's and then it'll just become that generation will be known, because there's going to be people coming in this next cycle, Jose. They're going to look at me, you, and other people here and be like, what the fuck are these guys doing? They just over there talking about it all the time. And no, we're going to come in and actually do this different, just in our own generational way, just like we did when we came in at that time that we came in. So I think it's just natural. I think this is just the way it always has been. We're just this version of the Matrix, right? Like,
sure.
I mean, Matrix as far as like this version of Bitcoiners.
I think we just need categorization. All systems do. So like, I'm not saying it should get, and I said this on that episode, I'm not saying it should get as messy as the fiat hierarchy. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying is that plebs need to be able to excel to be something in their mind frames. People that build eventually don't want to be builders. They want to be runners or owners of something where people build underneath them. That person is no longer considered a pleb, whether they want to call that or not. They can say I self-identify, but Parker Lewis is not a pleb. Adam Back is not a pleb, right? Like these dudes started as plebs. That's the entry level. But now in the war example, if we're going to send some people out to DC, we need to have these categories, because we can't send the pleb for the DC people to take them serious. We need to send the OGs. We need to send those people. So that's what I'm saying. One doesn't live without the other. It just doesn't work that way. Maxis exist because plebs exist, and plebs exist because maxis exist. And it's that circle that continues to spin. We need the plebs to come in and build and be able to set the stage. But we also need the people that have been here the longest, that can vouch for it the longest, that have stacked the education, that can write and emphasize things that the plebs cannot do, in order for all the work that the plebs are doing to be able to shine, for the world to be able to see. Without those people, and maybe I'm off on saying this, without those people ahead of the game, the shoulders for the plebs to build on, I think the plebs would just always stay building. They would never advance to anything, because they inherently build. That's what they do, and that's what they love to do. So if they don't excel and they have nothing to excel to, then they're always going to be builders. But builders don't sell shit. Builders don't move shit. They're builders, right? Like to a certain extent, I mean, generally speaking. So it's like, when you graduate, right? So like, I don't know when I'm not setting the rules here. When there's no rules, I'm not saying but what I'm saying is that there's a certain point where it doesn't apply to you anymore. You just can't use that term anymore. You can use it loosely and like, oh yeah, I got pleb tendencies and all that stuff, but they're real plebs, which is you and everybody that's in this building. Right. But then there's the upper echelon of that. And those are the ones.
I don't think those people are describing themselves as plebs. I've never heard that before.
Yeah,
to me, they've always described themselves as Bitcoiners.
Right. I'm not using that.
I think the vast majority of people in the Bitcoin space describe themselves as Bitcoiners.
But I'm not saying
but
that.
I do think there's this, at least for me, it feels like a wave of people that are just like, let's get rid of the term pleb. And it's like,
that's where you got me off. I'm not saying that at all. And I'm not using the argument of them. I'm saying if they do, it's off. I'm not saying I hear them call themselves plebs all the time. I'm using that logic to stress my point on the other part, which is, yes, it's okay to be a pleb, but eventually you can't be a pleb forever. So I'm not saying get rid of the term. That's just stupid. That's nonsense. But what I'm saying is be okay with aspiring to be to advance in life. Be okay to move.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you on your points. I've never met a person who said like, I want to be at this level for the rest of my life. Yes, I guess in the fiat space, but like amongst Bitcoiner space, I've never heard that. And even the ones who identify as a pleb have never said like, I want to just stability my whole life. I have no aspirations.
Right,
to me,
but-
I've never heard that conversation.
I can't, obviously, I'm not like an encyclopedia, so I can't tell you the exact interview or the exact moment, but I have heard people just to try to cater to a pleb crowd, basically sit there and say, like, yeah, man, we all plebs, but that person is not a pleb. They're just saying that because they want to be in favor of the pleb crowd. You see what I'm saying? And if anybody want to hold me on it, I'll go look for that
I think
interview.
you're thinking more of the culture side of the pleb culture.
Just don't call yourself a pleb, fam.
Of that, yeah, kind of thing.
Yeah, like it's like
It's an interesting thing. And like I said, I don't
no right
know.
or wrong answers either.
I don't know anything. Obviously, we're seeing.
don't know shit.
Obviously, we're seeing more and more projects and startups call themselves pleb. I think pleb AI just launched, so like it's not going to go away. Like
I don't want it to. I don't think it should. I think it's the entryway for Bitcoin is being a pleb.
And I like also I just think it's just this generation right now that's calling themselves that. And like, and for the record,
Sure.
I didn't choose the name. Like I
think it's a great name.
But like, you know, that was something that was
It's not to be frowned upon.
but to me, like personally, I consider myself a Bitcoiner, but I definitely live pleb though.
right.
I don't know if that's, I don't know what that definition would be, but I definitely am a
Yeah.
Bitcoiner and I definitely live pleb.
It's definitely not something to be shunned about. It's just that the hierarchy needs to be talked more about. And this is not to the plebs. This is directly to those people. Like I said, if you ever find yourself and you've been in Bitcoin I don't know the rules, X amount of times, and you have a certain stature, don't sit in front of people and say we're all plebs. That's all I'm saying. Because it doesn't apply to you. Because like you just said,
Let them do what they want, Jose. You're saying not to?
That's phony. That's the argument I'm bringing to the table.
Okay, so it gets down to that. Okay.
It's phony, bro, because you should be proud to have moved on from pleb status, right? First and foremost, so you don't have to say we're all plebs, and you can articulate yourself better. Because when I hear somebody who's not an obvious pleb basically say they're pleb, I actually think about, I know my man Card. That's a pleb. You ain't it, sir. You phony.
Yeah, don't throw me in that.
But why? You just said it yourself. You live in a pleb life.
Yeah, but it's just
They not.
It's just like I'm not telling anybody what they can't call themselves.
It's cultural appropriation.
If they want to call themselves a giraffe,
That's okay. But I'm allowed to raise my hand and say, yo, you are not a giraffe, sir.
a giraffe.
So you're right. Anybody can do whatever apparently in this world. I mean, dudes could go in females' bathrooms, right? So anybody can do whatever they want.
This is getting spicy. Yes, let's keep going.
They can do whatever they want. But I can also put my hand up and say, sir, in case you didn't realize it, you're using that wrong. That's my right as well.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. So
Hey,
I don't know shit about shit.
Good convo, man.
The burden's too heavy, the waves too strong.